Well,
Okay, we're gonna give it about 1 more minute before we kick it off and get started here. So
I'm just curious, is my camera on? Can you see me?
yes, but you kind of look like Brad Pitt. I didn't know if that was on purpose or no. You're on. You're fine. Yeah.
Whereas usually I can see myself. I can't today.
Huh. Okay.
Well, and as we get started, I will mute everybody, but definitely unmute yourself if you have any questions or comments to add. You can always also use the chat feature as well.
absolutely, yeah. And as usual, we will be recording today's session. So for those that are not able to make it, we know that schedules are very busy and sometimes people have put this on their calendar at the last minute. They are not able to make it. So the recording certainly helps folks. And we'll get that sent out then shortly after this. So, well, I believe we're at that 2 o'clock hour, a little after, so I do want to be respectful of individuals' times, and we do know that some individuals might join us a little bit later, and that's absolutely okay. But for those of us that are here today, we are wanting to make sure that we have the opportunity to speak with you and welcome everybody. So I want to introduce the Quillo team to get us kicked off. My name's Sue Gordon. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Quillo, and I'm located here in Indianapolis, in addition to our team members, Kisa Dickerson, who is our video production person, and you'll see a great video that she's produced today on the call, as well as John Dickerson, who's with us. He's the CEO and founder, of course. And then we have joining us up in Minnesota, Rebecca Scherpeltz, who is our Chief Content Officer. So that's our Quillo team. And again, if anybody has questions, you can contact any one of us, and we are always happy to help you out. So our agenda for today, we are going to be talking a little bit about some of the good news that we're hearing from organizations. We have a couple folks who are going to share some of their stories, and then we will open it up if anyone else has some good news you just want to share, because in this time when things are just kind of on topsy-turvy, we want to be able to acknowledge when things are just going well. So feel free to share any of your good news. We are going to talk a little bit about the new normal and reimagining your canvas. We've produced a fantastic video that will get us just kind of reflecting back and thinking about what is it that we may want to bring forward as we start to create our new normals. And then we'll get into a little bit about some of that messaging to really start to support what that new canvas might look like for your teams. We've made a commitment this year that we wanted to make sure that we took care of ourselves, because we certainly know that we have to fill our cup, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So we will highlight some of the self-care videos that we have on Quillo, and these are videos that you can use yourself personally or recommend them for the people in your organizations. We do want to get your feedback, so we have created a quick poll, and at the end of the session today, we'll share a link where you can actually take that poll. If you're someone who likes to do things fast and get it over, you can certainly take that at the end of the session today, or I will have that link in the notes that get sent out when I provide those tomorrow or Monday. And then we'll do our wrap up and next call. So that's a little bit about our agenda. And again, we have people from across the country. So I do want us to go to our chat features. And if you can just type in where you're from. I just want to kind of see where we have everybody from today across the country. Because we've got, Jennifer from Madison, Wisconsin. We got St. Louis, Missouri. We've got Indianapolis. Excellent. Yeah, so we're getting folks from some of the different states. Illinois, thank you. Another person from Indy. Awesome. Okay, so you can see we are across the nation though, and so we're always excited when we have those opportunities to have folks from across the nation bring in their ideas in terms of what they're doing and help us just identify some of the best practices across the nation. So thanks everyone for being here. So as I mentioned, we're going to kick off with some of the good news, and we have a couple individuals that we specifically, asked beforehand to share, some of the good news, because we did some reading about something that's happening over in Trinity Services, and Thane is with us today, and he's going to share a little bit about some of the things that they're doing regarding supporting people in their residential homes. So Thane, welcome to the call, and what's some of the good news that you can share about what your organization is doing?
Referencing some of the newspaper articles that people have been writing about our stay-in-place staffing models, which I think it's certainly other agencies around the country are doing that, where the basic model is that staff agree to move into a group home for a period of time. And, I guess that varies by provider. The standard model that we went with was 30 days, although a couple staff members have stayed on beyond that towards I guess 6 weeks has probably been the longest. But, again, lots of people are using this model. The thing that sort of surprised me at some level is the fact that we were able to get 51 of our 100 group homes in the model. And it really is, probably the safest staffing model, for this crisis. And, just the stories of self-sacrifice have been incredible in terms of, birthday celebrations and, holidays that have occurred that people have missed. In a couple of situations, or people that were staying in the homes lost family members and still stayed in place.
Wow.
Those weren't COVID-related deaths, but it just has been overwhelming. And as I've called out to, check on those staff, their spirits are good, and, they really see a value in what they're doing. And so it's just, really been remarkable, and just, I'm just, truly in awe at some level about the number of staff. I think 121 staff have participated in this staffing model for us.
Wow, that's excellent. So are the folks that actually then stay in the homes, is this kind of voluntarily done? Do you guys ask for the volunteers? How does that work?
Yeah, so I send out sort of a love letter to my staff every week. And part of what I include in there is just, again, sort of, talking about highlights in that model, but asking for potential volunteers, people willing to make that commitment. And now we're at a point that, we'll even just recently, now we're entertaining more brief stays, like 2 weeks at this point.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, great.
And we haven't furloughed any staff. Unfortunately for Trinity, because of our size, we didn't qualify for any of the PPP federal dollars. And so it's sort of an expensive staffing plan because we haven't furloughed any employees. This staffing pattern is so efficient that in a small program down by St. Louis, when we put 7 of their homes in this model, we had like 31 staff members that basically, we were paying 40 hours a week to stay home, which is good in terms of the governor's self-quarantine rules. But, it just sort of tells you, how efficient it is, but it's costly. So we're probably, well, I know we're spending about $450,000 a month more using this model. Because again, we're paying staff for at least 40 hours a week.
Wow. Wow. Any other questions for Thane? No, John?
Thane, any reactions from the people in the homes or families that you can share from?
Well, families are ecstatic, so I probably received more fan letters from families related to the staff commitments, because obviously the family members know that this is really safe, right? instead of having 3 or 4 staff coming in. And in a time where there are staffing shortages, there was a lot of pulling going on before this crisis. So obviously the first thing you have to do is sort of, minimize that. And, I think anybody that's thoughtful would recognize how much safer this model is than some others. And interestingly enough, 2 of the 51 homes, just shortly after we moved into the model, in 2 of the homes, people tested positive. And so the staff stayed in place. In one of those sites, staff actually had some symptoms, but they stayed in place and again, just did a fantastic job. So yeah, it's been, just a lot of support from family members who, have been sending me emails. And of course, I encourage them to, to send me a letter that I can get out to the staff and whatnot. So that's been great. And I think the program participants themselves have been very grateful. Some of the people that I know quite well receiving support have been, sending me emails, just saying how great staff have been and how they, really appreciate the staff keeping them safe. Certainly a number of our folks have the abilities to express that. And so that's, been, really cool to see too, just, the gratitude on behalf of the program participants. And we're like, I don't know, at this point now, we're like just a finely tuned machine. We have people, dedicated to working on curriculum that we get out to the houses every week. Today I think that they're playing virtual bingo across the agency with prizes and stuff. We have teams. Initially, when we couldn't get our hands on PPE, we had large teams, turning out thousands of masks for our employees and program participants. Program participants now that can wear masks are doing so. Although in the stay-in-place model, you don't really need a mask after, say, 14 days if nobody's showing symptoms.
Great.
Great.
Well, thank you very much, Thane, for sharing that good news. Sounds like it's working well for your organization. Colleen, I think there was some good news that we wanted to have you share from the village of Marici.
Okay, and Chrissy's on too. I thought she was going to
Okay.
be gone, but she's back. We don't
Okay.
communicate better, but anyway, I think our good news is that we've had so many different things, but I reflected back that when we began the concept of the village of Marici 10, 12 years ago, is that we wanted to create a strong sense of community for individuals and a sense of belongingness. And this COVID emergency or COVID crisis, whatever you want to call it, has just proven how well the people we support have come together in that spirit of community and support for one another. Not only the people we support, but their families and our staff have just been awesome in the response in terms of following the procedures for social distancing and making sure one another has the right cleaning supplies and sharing those with one another, making sure individuals in the community have food and or access to food, and then also just access to one another. The response in terms of being able to try new things like Zoom and different technologies has been able to keep everyone in not only a healthy physical state, but a healthy mental state, because they can now connect with one another on a daily basis, and sometimes more than that, even though they may be scattered all across the city. And so that's been great. Unfortunately, one of our DSPs lost a very beloved sister, and he sent a note just sharing that from so many of the people he supports, he got a phone call from one offering to watch his dog while he was at the funeral. Another person that he supports sent him a very heartfelt note. Several of them called, and his comment was it just reinforces that people with disabilities are capable of doing what everybody else does. On the outside, we may be different, but on the inside, we are all the same. Yeah. And I thought, what a great, sharing of the positive, support that we provide for one another. Usually it's the other way. The coaches or DSPs are providing the support to the individual, but this was just such a great response from the people that we support to the coach. And I think that was just excellent, great news. I also had a coach who emailed me who said that for the first time in 7 years that she's been living on her own, last month she was able to start her own savings account. And I thought, how fabulous. And this, she's been able to work and stay working even in this crisis, and then even meeting her own goals of being able to save and start, that independent living on her own. We hear so much that our DSPs, our coaches, are not able to make ends meet, and this was just such a great piece of news that she's able to succeed, being a staff member for us. So, I don't know, Christy, do you have anything to add or?
Sure. I think one of the most exciting things, Kelly mentioned the Zoom calls and all of those things, all of the different technologies that everyone's using, the House Party app and the Zoom app and all of those things. They're really staying connected, and we've had a lot of coaches that have really been able to provide quality services through technology, which has just been really, really cool to see. I think that, in the future, this could be a different opportunity for all of us to, be able to provide those services virtually. It is difficult to get, everyone together all the time. And it's just, we've really seen so much progress from this, and that it really does work, So I think that's very exciting. We've had a lot of parents email us and just really appreciative of our staff and the different things that they've been doing to connect and stay connected with the people they support. So even the coaches that aren't working, I guess, at this time, they're maybe self-isolating or whatever, they're still staying in touch with everyone. So that's very refreshing, for everyone. And just that sense of community, I think we've really, as Colin said, we've really, shown that we've built that, and it's been very, very nice to see it kind of come through, to fruition. So I think the other thing, almost everyone that lives in the apartments has stayed in their apartments. We've only had 2 people that did not stay out of the 23 people that we have. So
Wow.
That's I think a true testament of what we've built, that they all feel at home, it is their home, and
You're right.
they're not, going to their families and things. They're staying connected most of the time virtually. So, it's really been nice to see that as well.
Those are great examples of, again, the good things that are happening because of this. And thanks for sharing some of the technology that's being used and just your sense of community and how folks are supporting each other. And it has to be an awesome feeling, as those job coaches get, recognized from the individuals that they're supporting, the support that they receive, vice versa. So thanks for sharing those type of things that are taking place. And I just want to open it up and just ask, is there anyone else on the call today who, again, your organization, the people that are being supported, as well as the families, anything that you're experiencing that you'd like to share?
I'll jump in.
Thanks, Sharon.
I'm new to this group, so thanks for including me. I just was thinking as you were talking, in addition to all of us really increasing our confidence with these visual platforms, I've been so impressed with the people that we support. We have one young man who right about the time we were starting to be told to shelter in place was getting certified to be a Zumba instructor. So he has been offering Zumba classes to our other participants, and he's actually not even in St. Louis right now. He and his family went to Florida. So he and his mom are out on their patio leading Zumba classes for our folks, which has been just really a delight. We had quite a few of our people that come to social activities here. One of our staff shared with them a national dance that's being offered in Baltimore, Club 1111. And so our folks were dancing with people across the country, but my staff person realized how to spotlight people so that they could see the people they knew, and they recognized somebody that they hadn't been able to be in touch with, and the participants kind of pooled together, figured out how to get in touch with him, found out it was going to be his birthday, and they not only arranged a Zoom call to visit with each other, they had a birthday parade by his house. So I just think a lot of people are feeling building some self-confidence in areas that they didn't have before, and really taking ownership in ways that is delightful.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sharon, so much for sharing those experiences. You know, my hat's off to the staff, families, everybody who is stepping up during this time, because it really dovetails nicely into what we're going to talk about today, because that good news out there is helping us start to reimagine a new normal. And so if we start to think about those successes that are taking place, and you know, how individuals have overcome, used technology differently, started to recognize that, hey, maybe there's a little different way that we can do something. We have to start to say, how do we reimagine the new normal moving forward? And so as I want you just to think for a moment about the past 2 months and reflect on what has changed in your organizations. Because as we start to move forward, and Rebecca, if you want to flip to the next slide, we have to start thinking about what is that normal that maybe wasn't working as well as, gosh, now we've got a new way of approaching it. Do we need to recreate something a little bit differently? And you think about, you know, how services are being provided, what services are being provided, where they're being provided, who now is providing the services. You know, you've got some of your clients doing the Zumba classes or whatever. I mean, ways that we may have never even really thought about really taking a hold of and trying something new. And so I think what we want to do at Quillo is really help us continue to reimagine that new normal and help organizations move forward to really make things even better. So what I'd like to do is show you a video that Quillo has created. And this video, I think, can be used in a lot of different ways. The video is titled The Blank Canvas. And I want to show it to you and then reflect after on what you see and your perspective on how you might use this particular video. So let's look at the blank canvas.
The coronavirus pandemic has disturbed life as we know it in ways that we can't. Maybe it means taking extra precautions to keep others safe around you. Perhaps it has meant staying closer to home for work, school, or play. Maybe new systems have been created for your teams and it feels like the old ways have been thrown out the window. I imagine a lot of it is disruptive, challenging, and frustrating, among other things. It may feel difficult or too soon to find a silver lining in all of this, but if we've pushed pause on the normal that we used to know, what has changed that might be worth continuing? Are you spending your time differently? Prioritizing different things? Communicating with people you may have lost touch with? As we figure out what it means to open up, what values, actions, and perspectives are we taking with us? How will you paint your canvas?
I just really like the message that this particular video is sharing with us, because, you know, and again, I think what you've got to think about is where are you in your organization? And if you start to reimagine your canvas, you're going to start saying, hey, how do we start creating a new normal? What are those things that are going well that we can say, gosh, I want to take that forward. So one of the things I want you to just kind of think about in the context of kind of redesigning your own home. I think if we think about the canvas we need to paint moving forward, we can ask ourselves, is it really just a fresh coat of paint that we have to put on? Or is it, we've got to really do some tearing out and total remodeling? You've got to tear down some walls. We've created something new. So I guess I would just ask yourself, you know, as you start to think about the things that you've done in the past couple months, what do you want to take with you? And not only the actions, the things that you do, but what are some of the values that you might want to take forward? I think in some of the stories that I'm hearing, I'm hearing the values of people showing up with empathy, patience, kindness in a new way. And so as you start to think about the activities, the caring, things that have opened up, what is it that you're going to continue to move forward? So I just want to hear some reflections. As you saw that video, you think about, you know, is it a fresh coat of paint? Do we have to tear out new cabinets? What's some of the thoughts that are running through folks' mind as you start to think about reimagining your canvas moving forward? Who would like to share?
Hi, I'll share.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm the new training director at Clearbrook. Right before the pandemic, I actually was put in this role. So everything that I thought I knew kind of went out the window as we've taken this opportunity to restructure and regroup. We've used a lot of the online features, especially with Zoom, to make the classes available for our new incoming staff as well as our current staff. Right now, kind of like with Illinois' quote unquote reopening, we're able to offer very small classes like first aid and CPR. So we've just taken this opportunity to regroup and restructure and just kind of just do a whole overall of how we can change and make this better and make ourselves accessible for our staff and our clients. So we're not happy about what's going on, but we've taken this opportunity to make some changes. And so far, these changes have been very beneficial to our agency.
Great. Well, congratulations on the new role.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're heading in, diving in, you know, head first there, saying, "Hey, we gotta make it work."
Definitely.
So, yeah, great. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Sue, I'll share. Talking with one of our customers that couldn't be on the call today, they asked me to share. One of the things they had to do is, as their day services were shut down, they moved all of their day services staff over to help support in the residences. And they had, like many organizations, had this kind of two camps, this people that worked during the day and the people that worked in residential. And they didn't seem to understand, appreciate, support everyone. And now that everybody's been working together doing the same things, one of the things the CEO said to me, I don't want to go back to the old way, where we were two separate organizations. We're now one organization. We need to come together in a way that made a lot of sense. So he doesn't know quite how he's going to do it, but he realized that they were too segmented before, and now they want to focus on the individual instead of where they lived or where they spent their days. And I thought that was that was a really key lesson to come back. Another one is Rebecca's interviewing a mom and her daughter in Phoenix, Arizona, where she worked at Kroger, the young woman who happens to have a disability. And she chose, because all of her friends at Kroger were working through the pandemic, she chose to keep up her full schedule working with all of her friends through the pandemic. When, you know, her mother was kind of scared to death about her doing it, but wanted to support her in that role of moving forward. And the agency said, you know, this has taught us that we need to listen to people more about what is important to them rather than to make the choices for them along the way.
Yeah, good points. Thanks, John. Anyone else? Anything resonate as you watch that video and are thinking about what moving forward looks like? Well, one of the ways that you might reflect on this a little bit deeper is through a model that the Quillo team pulled together. We call it the Quillo retention wheel. And as we look at the retention wheel that was created, and we talk about this all the time in our team, we talk about, again, how do we retain our staff? And a lot of it is about the culture that's being built and focusing in on their well-being, as well as the relationships that people have. We all know that folks stay with organizations where they've built strong relationships with their leaders as well as the people that they support. You know, the habits that we create certainly make a difference. And we've talked in previous Quillo Nation calls about how do you create new habits? What does that look like? I hope some of you who may have been on those calls are trying to think about how do you use 15 minutes a day to maybe change a habit that you need to change. Your time, how's that being spent? What do you prioritize? Where does that need to go? But I think as you start to look forward about reimagining your canvas, where it really, I think, has a huge impact is around your processes. And so when you think about taking maybe what has been created a little differently, looks different, you can take some of the things that you're doing and ask, gosh, is this something that we want to move forward? For example, the way that you're providing the service through the use of technology. Are there some of those classes you want to keep that way? Maybe the hours of your operation or your services have changed a little bit and you realize that, gosh, it doesn't necessarily need to be a full 8-hour situation. We can take it down to 4 hours and provide something a little differently, and people are getting a better impact. I know for my daughter who had to take school over Zoom, you know, they were starting at 10 o'clock in the morning and going until just 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it worked great. So it wasn't a full day necessarily. What are staff meetings looking like? Has that process changed? What can you do differently? What's working well with those, and what should you keep? I think that's another thing that you can continue to ask yourself, hey, is there a better way? A lot of us are working from home. You know, are there ways that we can allow that to continue to happen for folks and still be as impactful as it is with everybody being in the office setting? How about your hiring and onboarding processes? Are those looking different right now? Are there things that you're doing that, gosh, we wouldn't have thought about doing that before by having maybe Zoom interviews? And is that, again, something you want to move forward? And then, of course, you've all talked about this, and that's the technology that's being used, cell phone use. Has that changed in your organization since this pandemic has hit? I know prior, a lot of organizations were saying, hey, no cell phones. But I think probably that's become a little bit more of a laxed policy now. So I think those are some of the areas that I reflected on to say, gosh, what are some of the processes that as I start to look at how do I move forward, that we may want to create that canvas and have it look a little bit differently. So I don't know, as I talk through that, anything resonate for someone that you want to share, or things that maybe your organization is already starting to talk about that would be helpful for others to hear a little bit more about, because we're using this term reopening, like opening up. The states are opening up, you know. What does that term really start to mean to people? So what's resonating for your organizations right now? Anybody want to share? I should say, who's going to share what's resonating for your organizations now?
I can start.
Thanks,
And I
Sharon.
don't know that this is resonating for our organization, but it's resonating with me in that I think we've given lip service for a really long time about how we adapt to change, about how we take risks, about all this other stuff. But the reality is that we're a very fear-based culture as far as looking foolish, making mistakes, stumbling on our heads. And I think as we've been forced in this situation to use tools that we aren't comfortable with and try new things, I think that there's been a little less fear about those sorts of things. And I'm excited about that because I think so often we have really, really great ideas and we process them to death in the effort to make sure we don't stumble. And I think sometimes stumbling is the only way to get where you want to go. So for me, I see that as an opportunity that I hope we take advantage of. We've been talking about remote supports for people for eons, and we've been so slow to use the tools that we have because it's different. And now we've had to do it.
Those are great points, Sharon. Absolutely right. You know, when we're forced into making a change as fast as we had to, nobody's judging each other on what's taking place because we're all kind of in that same situation, kind of muddling through it. So they're great points. Anyone else?
One of the interesting things that, you know, came out in the Chicago article with Thane and Trinity is how the state made some changes and adapted to do some things to help with this. And one of the thoughts that we've also always suggested to Quillo participants is, if you get a great video showing something successful or something positive, send it back up the chain to the state folks of, hey, this is something that you did that really makes sense and it's really worked well. Because just as we've held on to legacy thinking, you know, one agency that talked to me the other day, they said, you know, we don't even remember when we decided this, but all of their quote day programs started at 7:45 in the morning. That's awfully doggone early to get people up and get them going and be there for what they were going to do. And so they said, why did we do that? Well, we've always done that. And is that really conducive to people having a good life? You know, and does that fit for everybody along the way for what they wanted to do? So it's a great chance to look at processes and see what we are going to do and how it's going to work for us along the way.
So let's, I mean, once you figure out, okay, so how are we moving forward? What's the canvas going to look like? You got to then start to think about, so what's the messaging that we need to share with folks? And so the question then becomes, how does your messaging support your new normal, the new canvas you're going to be painting? And I think one of the things that we have to reflect on there is talking about, what does this word opening up mean to staff? You know, have you really closed down anything, or have you just really found a new way of doing something? So the other question is, you know, how is the opening up going to be communicated to people, or the new way, the new canvas, how it looks? How's that going to be communicated to the people that you support, as well as their families, as well as staff? You just, again, have to have that communication plan, thinking through that. And I know some of you are, you know, certainly already talking about what's taking place. Can I hear a couple thoughts about what your conversations have been like? And I know that they might not be totally thought out, but what are you already talking about in terms of maybe what that messaging needs to look like to support the organization moving forward? Would love to hear what you're thinking. Christy, have you and Colleen had some conversations around this?
We have, yes. We have sent out weekly emails, and we've sent out a lot of things to our families in our weekly newsletter. So I have been doing videos almost weekly. I'm trying not to overwhelm everybody, but you know, showing all of our like PPE gear and things like that. I've had employees that have chosen to self-isolate tell me that that has been very comforting for them to know that we are prepared and that we have everything that everyone needs to stay healthy and safe while working. So so that's been really helpful, just, you know, communication really. So you know, yeah, and we have enough, you know, things for the people we support and our employees. So that's been comforting for families, the people we support, and our employees. So
yeah, you know, that's a great point, Christy. You know, I of course get services for my daughter, and we have stopped anybody coming into the home because we have respite care or whatever. And we were just talking, so I'm still in touch with the person that supports her, and we were just texting back and forth, and she said something about, gosh, I might be able to come back in and support you, you know, in the next couple weeks. And it just made me as a parent start to ask all these questions about, oh my gosh, so do we have to have PPE equipment? Do we, you know, what's going to be the protocol from your agency that, you know, we've got to follow? What do I as a parent need to be responsible for? And it just made me start to ask all these questions. And basically I just told her, I said, I think we're going to need a couple weeks before we actually kick this off to really understand it. So
yeah, we've shared with our families and the people we support what our employees should be doing. The protocol that we're asking all the employees to follow. So we've been very clear with them, and that's been very very much of a relief for everyone.
Yeah, great. Yeah, very important. Thanks, Christy, for sharing.
Sure.
Others, what type of messaging? What are you doing today to kind of prepare? Thane, your team got some things rolling right now?
You know, my computer logged me off. I thought that you guys went off. Can you just, I just heard the last response, but can you just ask the question in terms of, so I understand it exactly?
Yeah, sorry about that, Thane. So we're just talking about, as you look at the new normal that you've got to create moving forward, how are you starting to think about messaging that new normal, the change, whatever canvas you're creating to your families, the people you support, your staff? Just kind of curious how you're starting to think through that process.
You know, there's still a fair amount of uncertainty, especially in terms of like the community day service programs, in terms of when those are likely to open. You know, we know now they're closed till July. I think, you know, so I guess we do a weekly video that sort of shows highlights of what's been going on for the program participants. We give updates in terms of if, you know, we've had staff or program participants test positive there. And then I did a Zoom call last week, and I had never done that before, but I'll probably do that on an ongoing basis. I don't know, we probably had 100 people on the line. And the parents were most curious about visitation rules, and they were curious about CDS programs, I guess. But probably visitation was probably at the forefront in terms of what's on their mind.
Yeah, great. Yeah, there's still, like you said, there's still a lot to think through. But the conversations, I think, have to get started early, and thinking through then, you know, who really needs to be communicated to, and what are those messaging, what's that going to look like?
You know, you asked a previous question about just sort of, I don't know, what I would probably do differently as a result of this. You know, we keep pretty good data when people become ill, like significant illness. And I have to say that, I haven't tried to do this yet, but I'm almost like 99.9% certain that when we closed our CDS programs, people were a lot healthier. So, and I've had experience now where COVID has made it into a house, just how easily stuff like spreads, right? So
Yeah.
I suspect everybody that's gone through this crisis, probably worldwide, will be more careful going forward and have a better understanding about infections and things, right? Because my guess is, like, let's just take something, and I think that it would be best for everybody to have their own bedroom for a variety of reasons, in terms of group homes. But, for funding reasons, we're just not at that point. At least Trinity's not in Illinois. But I suspect when they look at people who tested like COVID positive, I think what they're going to find is if one roommate has it, the other one does, right?
Yeah,
just in terms of, it's
absolutely.
not just a matter of personal preference and having privacy and things, right? It is at some level probably a public health issue.
Yeah. Great points.
I think advocates should sort of look at some of that information.
Yeah.
Really good point, Thane, on the health data. The other interesting thing, a provider had asked me the other day, because they track their incidents, reports of when bad things happen in the homes.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, they had far fewer incidents, both between individuals living there and between staff and individuals. And they said it was too early to tell whether that was just not being reported or it's just a change in behavior. But he believes it's directly related to how much positive communication they were putting out with folks and the messaging. And they were getting positive attention. Where he said, shame on us. Before the pandemic, much of our attention was around the negatives when things went wrong in the home.
Yeah.
Now we're being much more positive. And he looked at me and he said, well, this has taught me how we need to use Quillo better, because we need to keep sharing the short positive messages over and over again in addition to all of this. And he said, my managers, they can, in the old days, they drive 30 minutes to a home, spend 15, 20 minutes with them, move 30 minutes to the next one. Now they're doing it for Zoom, and they're hitting people more often, and they're being more positive with them and thanking them for what they're doing. And he said, we've got to understand the impact that makes then back when there's less problems in the home. And how interesting that is. And I think you can use this time as either being stuck in the home or we're safe in the home and we're going to do something creative with it. An agency in South Dakota shared the story of a young man who was pretty angry. And one of the bright young staff was thinking about, well, why are you, what's bothering you? And they finally got him to do, he'd always wanted to go up and see one of the peaks of one of the big hills in the Black Hills. And so they got a donated wheelchair that had the extra ATV-like wheels on it. And they took him up to the top of this hill, maintaining social distancing and all the protections. And they said how this was transformative, for he got to do something he really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And behavior in the home changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
hope, and your example is cool because it's sort of a live experience. My fear is that we don't take some of the advantages of the current system too far. Because I've seen people posting things, not on Quillo, but elsewhere about, well, maybe we don't need to go back into the community or go back to day programs because, you can take virtual tours of lots of places. Well, experientially, there's a big difference between virtual tours and the actual experiences.
Yeah.
And I've heard other people talk about, well, because of the reduction in challenging behavior, by not forcing people to go to community day service programs, maybe we should just let people stay home. But there's a slippery slope there because you have to have safeguards. Because I think most providers, are really keeping the people fairly active and engaged, using technology to do that. But that's a big difference than just sort of letting people be at home doing nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It worries me a little bit, because I think that there's going to be a wave of people who say, you know, especially larger CDS sorts of programs, you know, they don't help, you know, folks. We've got the behavioral data to show it. You know, if we don't make Johnny go to this CDS program, then you know, his life is better, as evidenced by a reduction in challenging behaviors.
Right.
And it's sort of akin to me to I think what's unfortunately happened on the behavioral health side of services, which is so much emphasis on things like permanent supportive housing. Yeah, so much emphasis on permanent supportive housing, and you're putting a roof over somebody's head and not really worrying about their quality of life. And, you know, it can be very cost effective to give a person affordable housing in terms of, you know, hospitalization rates and things like that. But, you know, it bothers me that we might just put somebody in an apartment and be okay with them just smoking and drinking coffee all day. You know, that
Yeah.
to me is not a life worth living.
Yeah.
Good point. And I think that's what, you know, one of the things that I've become such a fan of the life course model is that it focuses on building a good life that's balanced, that you never meet any potential friends at the art museum virtually, but you
Right.
might meet a friend at the art museum that talks you into being a docent. And I met a young guy who's now a museum guide at one of our Indianapolis museums, and he just got really interested and got talking to one of the folks there, and he got a job as a guide, walking
Wow.
people through. So here's this literally 7-foot tall man with autism giving guides in a museum.
Yeah.
And it's just, he enjoys that to all get out of what he's doing. So, but yes.
Yeah. Well, again, a lot of thoughts around this and things yet to come. But I know we've got folks on this call today that are going to be leading through this and making things even better. So with that, we do want to kind of take a look and ask, how can Quillo help with the messaging? Are there specific templates or scripts that would be helpful for you? If there's something that you're trying to create, and again, may have limited staff time, or you know, want us to put something specific out to help, we're willing to do that. We can also get on Zoom with your team and create some of these good news stories for you. We can do 20-minute recording sessions. It's a great way to help assist you with getting what you need to get those good news stories out and help spread the messages. We have the Q to You series, which is basically what we've done is create some moments to really pause, and it's from Quillo to You is what the Q to You stands for. And this series really started during the pandemic to just give you some of those added tips, ideas, and reminders for well-being. So if you've got thoughts or ideas on topical areas that we can add to our Q to You series, please let us know. And then also just continue to engage with ways that you're using technology with the coffee chats and other things that you're doing. So if there is something that Quillo can assist with, please let us know. We're here to help with the messaging. And just keep in mind, people like to see on your Quillo libraries things that are taking place in your organizations. So don't hesitate to pick up your phone and capture those moments. I think that's a key point moving forward. So as we start to wrap up here, let's just take a moment and highlight some of the self-care videos that you just may want to take a look at yourself personally. What you need to do is go onto your Quillo app, go to the search bar, and some of the ones that we're going to highlight today actually are around grief or grieving. So type in that word and you're going to see 8 videos that help address that. So if you've got, again, staff members, family members, DSPs themselves who are, you know, grieving for whatever loss has happened in their life, perhaps there's a Quillo video that might help them through that particular situation. I'd also encourage you to take a look at Take What You Need video. That particular video really helps identify additional videos to watch around advocacy, being calm, encouragement, ways to say thank you, and then just a good reminder for your direct support staff as to why they're in this business anyway. One of my favorite videos is really No Angry Way to Say Bubbles. When I'm having a kind of a down day, that's one of my go-to fun videos that I've cataloged in my playlist. No way to say bubbles, no angry way to say bubbles. I go to that one quite frequently if I just need a good laugh. And then we highlighted one of our Q to You series videos is Why My Doctor Looks Different. If you've got individuals that have to go to the doctor right now, that particular video is a great one to show them before they go to the doctor, because let's face it, everybody's garbed up in masks and, you know, covers that cover their faces, and they, as one person would say, look like spacemen. So take a look at that video and leverage and utilize that. So those are some of our highlights for our self-care videos. In addition, what we'd also like everybody to do, and we will add this link to the chat today. So if you want to click on that right now, you can. We'd like to just really find out from you as we move forward. We're about midway through the year, and we're doing our next quarter planning for Quillo Nation calls. We would love to hear from you as to what are some key topics that you would love to hear on the Quillo Nation calls themselves. So take a moment, either now on the chat, and it's so basically one question and a feedback or a comment box. Share your input with us so that we can continue to plan what is most important to you. If you don't want to take time right now, we will have it as part of our follow-up message with the recording that gets sent out tomorrow. All right, a lot that was discussed today. Thank you all so much for providing your information. We appreciate hearing your tips, what's taking place. We also have some just news to share from Quillo itself in terms of some features that we're going to be upgrading to. One is we're going to do a true push notification, and we expect that to be launched here in mid-June sometime. So that push notification will actually change the way people get notified for their daily focus. Right now, they get daily notified through a text message or an email. And so it'll be a true push notification from the app. So once you click on it, it will take you to the app and open up the daily focus. And this has been something that our users have been asking for, so we're excited to be able to get that finally finalized, so that that will take place here in mid-June. And then there'll be some other minor cosmetic updates that we're doing. Most of that is when someone logs on to the phone. But again, all of those is to make the app even better. So just a quick shout out and reminder that we are on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you're a user of any of those, please follow us, and likewise, we'll give you a follow back. So thanks for being a part of us on social media too. So with that, we're going to wrap it up for today. Our next call is June 18th. Please complete the survey so we kind of know what direction we need to head with our topics. We'll be joining again from 2 to 3 p.m. And we hope to see everyone here in the month of June. So thank you all very much for being part of today. Any final questions or comments for anybody?
Well, thank you, Sue, for leading this and putting so much work into it. What we're going through right now is hard. You know, there's no question about it. We've never went through something like this as a country, as a service system before, but we're going to get through it. Just from listening to each of you, it just gives me this incredible confidence we're going to get through it. And one last thing is to shout out with Thane when he talked about sending a love letter to his staff. Just that concept was powerful as we think about what everybody's doing. So we're sending that same level of love and appreciation for what you do every day to make your organization that much better and the families and people you serve. So thank you, everybody. Have a safe weekend coming up, and appreciate you all so very much. Thank you.
Right. Thanks,
Sure.
everybody.